Let's talk about some underrated shows I think you should be watching. I am a huge television addict. I watch an unreasonable amount of TV. I think if I had to guess how many shows I'm up to, it's probably around 300 shows I've watched like a decent amount of. Of course, I'm not caught up in anything because I like to bounce around constantly. I have a very short attention span, and so I'll watch one season of one show and then I don't pick it up again for like 2 years. Because of this, I think I do have a good opinion on what shows are great and what shows need more attention. Some of these shows on this list do have some attention, and I know lots of people watch, but I still think they deserve to be talked about more. The first show is Chuck. This show has 5 seasons. It stars Zachary Levi, Adam Baldwin, and Yvonne Strahovski. It's an awesome blend of comedy and action, which is not something I would gravitate towards, but it's incredible. It's so funny. It's about a guy who works in a place kind of like Best Buy, kind of like Walmart. He works in the nerd herd, and he's a guy who's very smart, but he's just not living up to his potential. And then one day, an old friend from college sends him a computer file. It ends up being this thing that kind of downloads into Chuck's brain and kind of turns his brain into this super useful government resource where he can flash, and it gives him all this information about different things and different people. So 2 different agents, one from the CIA and one from the NSA, come to protect him and be his handlers. All while he still has to work at the Buy More, which is the Walmart / Best Buy big box store. This show has everything, honestly. It is so funny, it has so much heart, it has drama, it has great action sequences set to ridiculous songs sometimes. The season 2 finale fight sequence that they have is just one of my favorite things ever. I've seen that episode so many times. It is so freaking good. I think it has such a unique premise for a television show. I do think that this show and one other show on my list have like the most unique premises of a lot of the shows that I've watched. I feel like not a lot of people have heard about this show or watched the show, and I think that is such a damn shame. I mean, the show is over now, obviously. It's been wrapped up. I don't remember when it wrapped up, but like, I was watching it in high school, so. Chuck Bartowski is my ultimate dream crush. Like, I love him so much. He is just the biggest dorky nerd, and I love him. Zachary Levi does a great job of not just of playing this character, but showing the progression from nerd to like awesome badass by the end of the show. Yvonne Strahovski is kick-ass. Like, she's incredible, the amount of choreography and stuff that she can handle, and she has to really pull a lot of the dramatic weight while also still being funny and having a good sense of humor. Adam Baldwin can make me laugh with just like a grunt. Casey is probably my favorite character on the show. They have great running jokes. Subway once saved the show, kind of, and so they have this awesome running joke with Subway that I think is hilarious. They have these great musical montages with Jeffster, which is a fake band in the show, played by some of the Buy More friends of Chuck's. And one of the other fantastic things about it is just all the nerdy cameos they manage to get in this show. They have the lead actor from Quantum Leap, and they have the lead actress from the Terminator series. They have one of the Bond villains, and like there's just so many throughout the show where they really like love the culture they're talking about. They really clearly have been inspired by it, and I don't know, it just makes my heart so fuzzy and warm. It's such a good show, especially the first 2 seasons. They're by far my favorite. And the finales are always so good. The season 2 finale especially, and Chevy Chase plays a villain in it, and it's so good. Yeah, everyone needs to watch this show. It's just a nerdy person's dream. With Chuck, I'm not sure if there's anywhere that's easy to watch it. I live in Canada, so our options for streaming definitely aren't the best. So it's not on our Netflix, it's not on Crave, which is our version of Hulu. I watched it on DVD because I bought all the DVD seasons. Oh, why wasn't I holding that up? Where is Chuck? Alright, I don't know where I put it. Oh, there it is. watched it on DVD because I bought all 5 seasons because they are fantastic. The show really is worth seeking out for. I hope it's on American Netflix or something so people can watch it easier than you can watch it here in Canada because it's a pain in the ass, but it's so good. The second show I want to talk about is Youre the Worst. This stars Aya Cash and Chris Gere. I have the first 2 seasons on DVD because there is actually 5 seasons of the show out. I've only seen 4 of them. The 5th season just wrapped up, and now the show's done, like it's over. The first 2 seasons are by far my favorite, personally. The 3rd season's still pretty good. The 4th season was a pretty big letdown, and like I said, I haven't seen the 5th season, but these first 2 seasons are one of my favorite shows of all time, easily. So, Youre the Worst. Youre the Worst is kind of a romantic comedy about 2 characters who are pretty terrible human beings. And they meet at a wedding of his ex-girlfriends, and they kind of hit it off. They go home, they expect it to be a one-night stand, but they end up wanting to come back for more. I'm not a romantic comedy person. I'm just not. I hate romantic comedy movies, but this show is just so sweet, but so real. I have never personally related to a character so much as the characters in this show, which is a terrible thing to say because, like I said, they are pretty terrible people, but I relate to Gretchen so much. It's kind of, they are 2 people who don't want to fall in love. He doesn't believe in love anymore and she's scared of it. I'm someone who's personally very scared of commitment and like marriage, just the idea of it like makes me want to hyperventilate, despite the fact that I've been in a relationship for like so many years and live with my boyfriend, but like still, that's always been like a huge part of me, is that fear of relationships and commitment and love and all that, and she definitely has that, and I connect to like her fear of adulting, and I just, like I said, I just relate so much to these characters. And I think that they have a very real version of love where they're both deeply flawed people, but they love each other and they deal with that because it's more worth being terrible together and making life a little bit better than being apart. One of the biggest, greatest things about this show is the way that they deal with different mental health issues, because while this is an extremely funny show, they still take on very serious topics, especially from the 2nd season on. They deal with PTSD for one character and they deal with depression for another, and the depression arc in particular hit me so close to home. Obviously, depression can take different forms and manifest itself in very different ways for very different people, but for me, the way that they deal with it on the show is very much how my depression shows itself and manifests, and so I just connected to that so much, and it was just so refreshing to see that. And they didn't just do it in one episode and then like forget about it completely. Like, it's something that gets dealt with over a season long, plus it still has consequences like from the show going forward after that. And it was just so well handled. And with the PTSD stuff, they deal with it in a way where they take it very seriously, but they also can make dark jokes about it as well. I just think that the show does mental health so right. They have, I will say that if you're shy in any way sexually, like, probably don't watch this because they deal with sex in a very unapologetic manner. Like, they show more sex scenes than most shows I watch. Granted, I don't watch Game of Thrones, so there's that, but especially for comedy, it is just very frank and very real about its sex scenes. I watched this with my dad once, and it was very uncomfortable. The acting also is fantastic across the board, especially, like I said, during those mental health things where they have to really bring out the serious subject matter. It's top-notch. So good. I also wanted to give a shout out to Lindsay and Sam's characters. Lindsay is the best friend of the main character, Gretchen, and Sam is a rapper that Gretchen is a publicist for. Those 2 actors are incredible. Their line delivery is so freaking fantastic. I'm just constantly laughing whenever they deliver a line because it's just so specific. I actually couldn't stand Lindsay at first, the actress Heather Donahue. I found her so grating, But by season 2, I just loved her. She was like my favorite part of the show. And now when I go back and rewatch the first season, I'm like, how did I ever not like her? She is flippin' fantastic. I also want to say that the first episode of season 3, there is one word, just a word, where I laughed so hard that I sprayed water all over my computer screen. Like, that's how funny this show is. I died. This show is so good, and nobody I know watches it, and it bums me the fuck out. If there's any show I can make you watch, I hope it's this one, because it is just so underrated. With Youre the Worst is another show where I don't know if there's any place to watch it very easily. I know in Canada there isn't. I had to buy these DVDs off Amazon, and they're imported, so they're hella expensive. I know it won't be on Netflix. It might be on Amazon Prime, I think, in the States, or maybe Hulu, because it's on FX. It's on the FXX network. I know that they, you know, Fox and FX and all that, they just got bought out by Disney, so maybe it'll end up on Hulu since Disney owns Hulu as well. Who knows, but I hope it does. Please watch it. The next show I want to talk about is Community. This show aired on NBC. It has 6 seasons overall. I own seasons 1, 2, 3, and 5 because if you've watched the show, you know that season 4 was under a different showrunner and it is horrible. I also just didn't like season 6 as much. It went over to Yahoo and it had like a lower budget and it just didn't work as well for me, especially because like a lot of the actors had left by this point and so they had to be replaced with other people. It just didn't work as well for me, but these seasons are so good. So Community is a show about a group of people who meet at community college and form a study group. But to say that it is just that is doing it a disservice because it is so much more than that. This is the other show that I was talking about when I said that another show on this list has a very unique premise. The premise, I guess, actually isn't that unique, but what they do with it is mind-boggling. Dan Harmon is a genius, kind of an asshole, but he's a genius. First of all, let me just say that Donald Glover is in it. I feel like that's enough to get some people to watch, and that's great because he's flippin' fantastic in this. He's honestly one of my favorite parts. The friendship that he has with Abed is so cute and just so pure, and it's perfect. I've never seen like such a great friendship between two guys that I just like love so much. I guess since Joey and Chandler, but this one's better. This stars Joe McHale, Alison Brie, Jillian Jacobs, Chevy Chase, Ken Jeong, John Oliver, Danny Pudi, Yvette Nicole Brown, and Jim Rash. It's hard to talk about this show because it is so different from one episode to the next. One episode, they're losing a pen and turning it into this incredible bottle episode where all hell breaks loose. In another episode, they're dealing with a chicken finger crisis where that's an homage to mafia movies. In another episode, they're little 8-bit video game characters who are trying to win the one guy's dad's inheritance. Every episode is just incredibly different and incredibly inventive. My absolute favorite comedy episode of all time is the Dungeons & Dragons episode that they do. It is hysterical. I have seen it probably 100 times and I still find new things to laugh at. It's so freaking good. It's just these characters sitting in a room playing Dungeons & Dragons and it is so funny. I love, first of all, that they don't shove a ton of romance down your throat because this show doesn't need it. There are some couples and some will they won't they stuff, but it's just not what it's focused on. I will say that it is focused on it a little bit in season 1 more than the rest of the series. Season 1 is a lot different from the rest of the series, I will say that, because they were clearly testing out the waters and seeing how much they could get away with. Although, one of the most classic Community episodes is in season 1 and is the paintball episode that is an homage to films like Die Hard, and it's, once again, just incredible and amazing. I also just want to say that I love the sarcastic humor in the show because it is just right up my alley. I will say that it's a niche show, and like if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't. I know people who watch the show and they're like, I don't understand why you love so much about it. And then I have other people who watch it and it just blows their mind like it blows mine. It is incredibly meta. It loves pop culture, and like I said, there are so many episodes that are homages to different pop culture things, and I love those episodes. Who watches so much TV and watches so many movies and reads so many books and all that, like, I love references to pop culture, what can I say? Like, they have an entire episode that's just an homage to Law and Order, and it is spot on. I also feel like it has some pretty good character development. The characters who show up in season 1 definitely aren't the characters leaving in season 6. It's also a show that knows how to turn its weaknesses into its strengths. Britta is an incredibly annoying character in season 1, but they eventually turn that into one of their funniest running jokes. I hope that soon we will get that movie. I know Community used to be on Netflix, but I believe when Yahoo bought the rights to it that it was taken off Netflix, so it might be on Yahoo. I'm not totally sure where else it would be. I know that here in Canada there's like a season of it on Crackle. I'm not sure. I would search everywhere. Now here's a show that I do believe is a little more talked about and a little more beloved, but I can't not talk about it, and that is Veronica Mars. This show was one of my first television loves and my first television obsessions. I watched this when it came out as it was airing. This is about a girl who is a daughter of a private detective. Her best friend was murdered, and she decides that she's going to investigate and figure out who killed her. Besides just that overarching mystery, she also solves different crimes every episode within her high school. There's also a lot of haves versus the have-nots, because there's like a 1% that is just super rich, and then there's people like her that also live in the town and go to the school, but who are very much not rich. First of all, I just want to say Kristen Bell is incredible. I mean, she gives such a freaking fantastic performance. She walks the line between being tough as nails, but also vulnerable in a way that I don't think she's done since then, to be honest. I want to see her in more roles like this because she keeps ending up in these rom-coms, and she deserves this type of awesome material. The show is just so witty. The dialogue is definitely not your average teenage dialogue. In my opinion, this has probably the most perfect season of any show I've watched. From beginning to end, this first season is just incredible. It's near perfect. The mystery was great. The answer was simple, yet like just was perfect and made sense. Which I know that doesn't sound like a lot to ask for, but sometimes it is nowadays. I also think that this is one of the better enemies to lovers tropes out there, or at least one of my personal favorites. I actually don't love them together, but I love their witty back and forth banter as enemies. I think it's just so damn good. I love the way that they're able to take on such dark subjects, and I feel like it's a show that appeals to both teenagers and adults. Like, even though this takes place in high school, I think adults can watch it and feel totally at home with it, and not feel like it's something that's super young. The Christmas episode in this, An Eccles Family Christmas, I think it's episode 10, it is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, episode of any television show of all time. I love that episode so much. I have seen it so many times. It's so perfect, and it's so funny. And it's a great one-off episode. I feel like that episode in itself could be a freaking Agatha Christie novel. It's so good. I also think that it has great and memorable villains. The second season finale, ugh. I can still quote lines from it. Me and my friend will look at each other and still quote the one line from the season 2 finale. It's just great, relatable villains somehow that like are believable. I love how unapologetic she is as a character. I think she's almost unapologetic to a fault. Even when she screws up, she doesn't give a shit because she, in her mind, she's doing what's right. I will say the third season is not my favorite, and I actually haven't watched the movie. I own the movie. I also gave to the Kickstarter, but I just have never got around to watching it because I wanted my boyfriend to catch up on this show before we watched it. And now the new season is coming out on Hulu in July, and I'm so excited. So if you haven't watched this show, definitely catch up with it before July because that new season, I'm sure, is going to be dope. I'm not sure where you can watch this. Maybe it's on Hulu. Maybe it's on Netflix. It's freaking nowhere in Canada. As you can see, that's a trend here. The last show I want to talk about, I don't have the DVDs for because there is no DVD for it because Netflix sucks. And that show is One Day at a Time. This show is about a Cuban-American family. That's basically it. It's obviously a remake of an old show. I never watched the original, but I have seen this new one multiple times. It has 3 seasons, which is not nearly enough seasons. It was just canceled and that breaks my freaking heart. This show definitely portrays an underserved community in media. I personally haven't seen a lot of shows about Cuban Americans, and I know that there's not a lot of shows out there about that. I personally myself am not Cuban or American, but I have heard many people who are say that they truly feel like it is a good representation of their community and of their experience in their families. So you'd have to take their word for it, not mine, of course. It's a show that is intensely heartwarming, and it's a show that feels very old school while dealing with issues that are very relevant. You know, it manages to make me laugh and make me cry in the same episode because it deals with so many tough topics while still being a funny family sitcom. They deal with things from immigration to gun violence to PTSD to anxiety, and I think they deal with them all pretty well. Elena is such a unique and needed character. She is proudly a social justice warrior. She has a great coming out storyline in the first season. And I just love how goofy and nerdy she is. And she's just always happy and excited about everything. And the actress is really able to handle all the dramatic scenes. I mean, she's probably the character that makes me cry the most, while also being intensely funny. The show just has so much heart. The season 1 and the season 2 finales both made me bawl my eyes out, but especially the season 2 finale. The season 2 finale is just incredible. It all takes place in one room and I literally bawl my eyes out. It's so good and it's so well acted and once again just so heartfelt. It's a very quick show to get through. There's only 12 episodes and they're all half an hour long, so you can zip through it, so there's no excuse not to watch it. Plus it's on Netflix, so doubly no excuse not to watch. I also want to say that Schneider is another like dream guy up with Chuck Bartowski from Chuck, because Schneider is just, I mean, he's a super privileged white guy who tries very hard to understand the things that he doesn't because of his position. He's a well-meaning dude and it touches my heart what a dork he is. And he's just so cute. The show just deserves all the viewers. I don't know, it just reminds me of home and happiness and just, it just makes my heart smile. And Penelope Alvarez is definitely one of the best TV sitcom moms out there. And Rita Moreno is hilarious. She is never not funny in this show. She kills it just 24/7. So those are the 5 shows that I think are underrated and everyone needs to be watching. I have so many more shows that I think people need to watch and that I would love to talk about, so I will probably make this video more than once. I hope you'll come back and watch again. Bye.